The cell was cold and dark, and smelled like rust and fear. Princess pressed her back against the metal wall and tried to stop shaking. Her silver skin was covered in bruises that looked like dark storms beneath the surface. Her 4 eyes, usually bright with the light of royal confidence, were dim and tired. She had been in this cell for 12 days now, and each day had been worse than the last. The syndicate had taken her during what should have been a simple diplomatic mission. Her ship had been traveling through the outer territories, carrying medical supplies to a colony that had suffered from a plague. It was supposed to be safe. The route was supposed to be protected, but nothing was ever really safe in the dark spaces between stars. The pirates had come out of nowhere, their ships appearing from behind an asteroid field like ghosts made of metal and fire. They had disabled her vessel in minutes, killed most of her guards in the boarding action, and dragged her from her hiding place in the cargo hold. At first, they had not known who she was. She was just another prisoner, just another piece of cargo to be sold or ransomed or worse. Then they had seen the royal markings on her skin, the patterns that could not be faked or hidden, and everything had changed. Now she was valuable. Now she was important. Now she was being kept in this cold cell while the syndicate captain sent messages to her enemies, asking who would pay the most for a princess of the empire. The door to her cell opened with a grinding sound and looked up, expecting to see the guards who came every day to take her to the interrogation room. But instead of guards, she saw them dragging another prisoner. He was strange looking. She had never seen his species before, though she had heard stories. 2 eyes instead of 4, set flat in his face. Brown skin that looked soft and unprotected, without scales or armor or any natural defense. Dark hair cut short against his skull. He was wearing torn clothing that might once have been some kind of uniform, and there was blood on his face and his hands. The guards threw him into the cell, and he hit the floor hard but did not cry out. He simply lay there for a moment, breathing slowly, and then pushed himself up to a sitting position against the opposite wall. "Human," one of the guards said, spitting the word like it was a curse. "Maybe you can keep the princess company. 2 pieces of cargo in 1 cell." He laughed and closed the door, and the darkness swallowed them both. Watched the human carefully. She had heard about his species, of course. Everyone in the galaxy had. They came from a death world, a planet so dangerous that most species could not survive there for even a single day. They were supposed to be primitive, violent, unpredictable, the kind of species that the civilized galaxy avoided. But this human did not look violent. He looked tired. He looked hurt. He looked like someone who had been fighting for a long time and had finally stopped. "Are you injured?" she asked. Her voice was rough from screaming during the interrogations, but she kept it steady. The human looked at her. His eyes were brown like dark wood, and there was something in them that she could not read. He did not answer for a long moment. "Nothing that will not heal," he said finally. His voice was calm, quiet. "Are you?" She almost laughed. Almost. "Nothing that will not heal," she repeated his words back to him. He nodded slowly, as if this answer satisfied him. Then he closed his eyes and leaned his head back against the wall. "I am," she said. She did not know why she told him. Perhaps because the silence was too heavy. Perhaps because she had not spoken to anyone except her torturers in nearly 2 weeks. "Cole," the human replied without opening his eyes. "How did they capture you?" Now he opened his eyes. He looked at her with something that might have been surprise. "Does it matter?" "I have been in this cell for 12 days with no one to talk to. Everything matters now." Was quiet for a moment. Then he shifted his position slightly, and she noticed that he moved carefully, protecting his left side. Broken ribs, probably. She had learned to recognize the signs. "I was working on a freighter," he said. "Small ship, independent crew. We were hauling machine parts through the reaches when the syndicate found us. They killed the captain and the pilot. They took me and 2 others because they thought we might know something valuable." He paused. "The others did not survive the questioning." I am sorry." He looked at her again, and his expression shifted into something that was almost a smile but not quite. "You are a princess. You should not apologize to cargo. You are not cargo, you are a person." The syndicate does not seem to agree. The syndicate is made of monsters who will one day burn in the fires of their own cruelty. Their opinions do not matter. This time really did smile. It was small and brief, but it was real. That sounds like something a princess would say. It is something my mother would say. She is the queen. Pulled her knees up to her chest, trying to conserve warmth. The cell was getting colder as the ship moved through space, and she had no way to regulate her body temperature. Her species was not built for cold. She is probably very worried right now, or very angry. With my mother, it is often difficult to tell the difference. Will she pay the ransom? Shook her head. No, the Empire does not negotiate with criminals. It is our oldest law. If she pays for me, then every princess and prince and noble in the galaxy becomes a target. So she will refuse, and the syndicate will eventually realize that they cannot profit from me, and then they will sell me to someone else or kill me. Studied her face. You say this very calmly. I have had 12 days to accept it. Have you accepted it? She did not answer. She did not need to. The fear in her eyes said everything. They sat in silence for a while. The ship hummed around them, carrying them further and further from anything had ever known. She thought about her home, about the crystal spires of the palace and the warmth of the twin suns. She thought about her mother and her sisters and the life she had expected to live. She thought about dying in this cold cell, alone and forgotten. Tell me about your world, she said suddenly. Raised an eyebrow. My world. Earth, I have heard it is a death world. I have heard your species evolved in conditions that would kill most sentient beings. I want to know what it is really like. He was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he began to speak. Earth is beautiful, he said. It is green and blue and full of life. There are forests so thick that the sun cannot reach the ground, and oceans so deep that no one has ever seen the bottom. There are deserts where the sand stretches from horizon to horizon, and mountains so tall that the air at the top is too thin to breathe. That does not sound like a death world. It is not the landscape that makes it dangerous. It is everything else. The temperature can change 50 degrees in a single day. The ground shakes and splits open without warning. The sky throws fire and water and wind at you, sometimes all at once. And the other creatures, he paused. There are things on Earth that exist only to kill and eat other things. Predators with teeth as long as your hand. Insects that carry diseases that have killed millions. Plants that will burn your skin if you touch them, or poison you if you eat them. Shivered, how did your species survive? We adapted. We learned to run, to fight, to hide. We learned to use tools because we had no natural weapons. We learned to work together because alone we were weak. Looked at his hands, spreading his fingers wide. These hands cannot cut or crush or poison, but they can build shelters, make fire, create weapons. Humans survived because we refused to die. Refused to die, she repeated softly. There is a trait my people have. We call it endurance. When other creatures would stop, when other creatures would give up and accept death, humans keep going. We can run for days without stopping. We can survive wounds that would kill most species. We can push through pain and exhaustion and fear because our bodies and our minds simply refuse to quit. Looked at him differently now. This soft, unarmored creature who should have been weak and fragile. This human who sat calmly in a pirate's cell, talking about his death world like it was the most natural thing in the universe. Is that how you survive the questioning? She asked. Nodded slowly. They thought because I am small and soft I would break easily. They were wrong. They thought the same about me. And did you break? No, but I wanted to. Every day I wanted to tell them everything just to make the pain stop, but I remembered who I am. I remembered that I am a princess of the Empire and we do not surrender. We do not yield. We endure. smiled again, and this time it reached his eyes. Then we have something in common, Princess. We both refuse to die. The days passed slowly in the cell. And talked. They talked about their worlds and their families and the lives they had lived before the syndicate took everything away. They talked about hope and fear and the strange comfort of not being alone. And slowly, without either of them really noticing, they began to trust each other. Every day the guards came for. They took her to the interrogation room, where a creature with too many limbs and not enough mercy asked her questions about the Empire's defenses, its weaknesses, its secrets. Every day she refused to answer. Every day they hurt her. And every night she returned to the cell and was waiting. He would help her to the corner where they had made a kind of nest from torn blankets and pieces of cloth. He would check her wounds with gentle hands, hands that had never healed anyone before but were learning now because she needed them too. He would tell her stories about Earth, about the mountains and the oceans and the strange and wonderful creatures that lived there. He would make her laugh, somehow, even when laughing hurt. "You should save your strength," she told him one night when he was tearing another strip from his shirt to bandage a cut on her arm. "You are injured too. You need to rest." "I am fine." "You are not fine. I can see how you move. Your ribs are broken. You have not slept properly in days. You need to take care of yourself." Finished the bandage and sat back. "I will take care of myself when there is no one else who needs taking care of." "That is foolish. That is human." Stared at him. Why do you care what happens to me? We are strangers. We are from different worlds. If the syndicate kills me, it does not affect you at all." Was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "On my world, there is a concept called honor. It means different things to different people, but to me, it means this. When someone is suffering and you can help them, you help them. It does not matter if they are a stranger. It does not matter if helping them costs you something. You help them because it is the right thing to do. And if helping them gets you killed, then you die with honor." She shook her head. "Humans are strange." "Yes, we are." On the 40th day, everything changed. Returned from another interrogation session, barely able to walk. The creature with too many limbs had been particularly cruel today, using new methods that left no marks on her skin but made her feel like she was burning from the inside out. She collapsed in the cell and caught her before she hit the floor. "They are running out of patience," she whispered. "The ransom negotiations are failing. No one wants to pay for a princess who cannot give them information. They are talking about selling me to or just killing me." Helped her to their corner. His face was calm, but something was different in his eyes, something hard and cold like a door closing. "How many guards usually patrol this section?" he asked. Blinked to what? "The guards, how many are there at night?" "Two, I think, sometimes three." She tried to focus through the pain. "Why?" "How often do they check on us?" "Every few hours. They look through the window and the door to make sure we are still here." She grabbed his arm. "What are you thinking?" He looked at her, and she saw something in his face that she had never seen before. It was not anger exactly. It was something colder than anger, something older. "I made you a promise," he said quietly. "I told you that we both refuse to die, but refusing is not enough anymore. Now we have to act." "Act? What can we do? We are trapped in a cell on a ship full of criminals. They have weapons and numbers and power. We have nothing." Smiled, and it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of something that had been pretending to be tame and had finally remembered what it really was. "You are wrong, Princess. We have something they do not expect." He held up his hands. "We have a human." "I do not understand." He moved closer to her, speaking in a low voice that could not be heard through the door. "For 40 days I have been watching. I have been counting guards and memorizing schedules. I have been studying the layout of the ship, learning which corridors they use and which ones they do not. I have been waiting." "Waiting for what?" for the right moment, and for you to be strong enough to move. Felt a spark of something she had almost forgotten. Hope, you have a plan. I have a plan. He took her hands in his. But it is dangerous. It will require you to trust me completely. Can you do that? She looked into his brown eyes, those strange human eyes that had been watching over her for 40 nights. She thought about the stories he had told her, the way he had cared for her wounds, the quiet strength that had kept her from despair when despair seemed like the only option left. Yes, she said, I trust you. Nodded, then rest now. Tomorrow night we leave this cell, one way or another. Did not sleep much that night. Neither did. They sat together in the darkness, and he told her the plan in whispered pieces, explaining each step, each moment where things could go wrong. She listened and asked questions and tried to believe that this impossible thing could actually work. When the guards came the next morning to take her, she went without resistance. But for the first time in weeks, she was not afraid. She had something to hold onto now. She had hope. She had her human. The night of the escape began with silence. The ship had entered a quiet phase of its journey, moving through empty space toward the trading station where would be sold. Most of the crew was sleeping or drinking, or doing whatever pirates did when there was nothing to plunder. Only a skeleton crew manned the critical stations, and the guards patrolled their usual routes with the boredom of routine. In the cell, waited. He had spent 40 days preparing for this moment. He had torn strips of cloth from his shirt and braided them into rope. He had worked loose a piece of metal from the frame of the sleeping platform, grinding it against the floor night after night until it had a sharp edge. He had exercised in silence, building back the strength that the interrogations had tried to steal, keeping his body ready for what was coming. Now he stood by the door listening. Footsteps, 2 guards, right on schedule. They stopped outside the cell and heard the click as one of them opened the viewing slot in the door. Still alive in there? The guard asked, his voice bored. Stood in full view of the slot, his hands visible, his posture defeated. Behind him lay in the corner, apparently unconscious. She collapsed, said. She has not moved for hours. I think something is wrong with her. The guard hesitated. A dead princess was worthless, and the captain would not be happy if they lost their valuable cargo. Could see the calculations happening behind the guard's eyes. Check on the prisoner or call for help. Risk opening the door or risk being blamed if she died. I will take a look, the guard said finally. You back against the wall. If you move, I shoot. I understand. The door slid open. The guard stepped inside, his weapon raised, his partner staying in the corridor to watch. He moved toward who lay perfectly still, her breathing shallow and irregular. Years of royal training had taught her how to control her body, how to appear weak when strength was needed. The guard bent down to check on her. Moved. It was fast. Faster than the guard could react, faster than his partner in the corridor could raise a weapon. Crossed the cell in 3 steps, the sharp piece of metal in his hand, and then the guard was falling and the metal was red and was already reaching for the weapon. The second guard fired. The shot went wide, burning a hole in the wall where had been a moment before, but was not there anymore. He was low, rolling, coming up under the guard's weapon and driving the metal into the soft place beneath the alien's jaw. 2 guards, 6 seconds, silence. Stood, her whole body shaking. She had seen violence before, seen guards and soldiers fighting in the distance, but she had never seen anything like this. Had moved like water, like shadow, like death itself given human form. We need to move, said. His voice was calm, as if he had not just killed 2 beings with his bare hands. Take one of their weapons. Stay behind me. Do exactly what I tell you. She picked up the weapon with hands that would not stop trembling. How did you learn to do that? He looked at her, and for a moment she saw the weight of something old and heavy in his eyes. Humans learn many things when they have to. Now come. We have work to do. They moved through the corridors like ghosts. Led the way, stopping at every corner, listening for footsteps and voices. He had memorized the patrol schedules during his weeks of watching, and he used that knowledge now, guiding them through the empty spaces between danger. They found 4 more guards in the next hour. Each one died before they could raise an alarm, was fast and quiet and utterly without mercy. He did not hesitate. He did not show emotion. He simply did what needed to be done and moved on. Followed, holding her weapon, trying not to think about what she was seeing. She told herself that these were the same beings who had hurt her, who had made her scream and beg and wish for death. She told herself that they deserved what was happening to them. But a part of her, the part that had been raised to believe in justice and law and civilization, felt sick. They reached the command level as the ship's artificial night cycle began to end. "The captain's quarters are through there," said, pointing to a heavy door at the end of the corridor. "And the bridge is on the other side. We need to take both at once, or they will lock down the ship and trap us." Hal looked at her, and something in his expression softened slightly. "I will take the bridge. You take the captain." "What? No, I cannot." "You can. You have to. The captain is one being. The bridge will have at least 4 crew members. I need to take them fast before they can send a distress signal. But I cannot be in 2 places at once. I have never killed anyone." He put his hands on her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. "The captain is the one who ordered your torture. He is the one who planned to sell you like an animal. He is the one who has caused you more pain than anyone else on this ship. And right now, he is probably asleep in his bed, dreaming about the money he will make from your suffering." Felt something shift inside her. The fear was still there, but something else was rising to meet it. Something hot and sharp and hungry. "What do I do?" "Open the door quietly. Move fast. Aim for the center of the body. Fire until you are sure he is dead," squeezed her shoulders. "You can do this, princess. I believe in you." She took a deep breath, let it out slowly, nodded. "On my signal," said 3, 2, 1. He moved toward the bridge. She moved toward the captain's quarters. The door opened with a soft hiss. The captain's room was dark, filled with shadows and the soft glow of stolen treasures displayed on shelves. Could see the shape of him in the bed, could hear his breathing, slow and steady with sleep. She raised her weapon. For a moment she hesitated. This was not who she was. She was a princess, a diplomat, a believer in law and order. She was not a killer. Then she remembered the interrogation room. The pain, the fear. The way he had smiled at her screaming, had enjoyed it, had told her exactly what would happen to her when she was sold. She fired. The captain woke up screaming. Or rather, he tried to scream. The first shot hit him in the chest, and the second took most of his throat. He reached for something on his bedside table, a weapon or a communicator, but the third shot ended his reaching and his screaming and everything else. Stood in the darkness, breathing hard, the weapon hot in her hands. She had killed someone. She had looked into his eyes in those final seconds and seen his terror, and she had ended him anyway. She thought she would feel sick. She thought she would feel horror or guilt or despair. Instead, she felt free. Footsteps in the corridor. She spun, weapon raised, but it was. He was covered in blood, most of it not his own, and there was a new cut on his cheek that was dripping red down his jaw. "Bridge is clear," he said. "You." Clear. She looked past him at the corridor that led back toward the holding cells. "What about the rest of the ship?" "We work through it systematically. Every corridor, every room, no survivors." "No survivors," she repeated. "That is, there must be 50 people on this ship." 62 according to the logs I found on the bridge, 47 syndicate operatives, 12 guards, the captain and his 3 officers. He looked at her steadily. "I know what I am asking. I know it seems cruel, but if we leave anyone alive, they will hunt us. The syndicate will hunt us. Your empire cannot protect you from that kind of enemy. The only way to be safe is to make sure no one is left to follow." Wanted to argue. She wanted to say that this was wrong, that there had to be another way, but she looked into his eyes and saw the truth there. He was not enjoying this. He was not a monster who killed for pleasure. He was simply doing what had to be done to keep her safe. "Together?" she asked. He nodded. "Together." They swept through the ship like a storm. Learned things about herself that night. She learned that she was stronger than she had ever believed. She learned that fear could be transformed into focus, that anger could be directed instead of destroyed. She learned that survival was not a gentle thing, that it had teeth and claws and no room for mercy. Taught her? He taught her how to move through doorways, how to check corners, how to aim and fire and keep moving. He taught her to be silent, to be fast, to be deadly. He taught her that hesitation was death and that confidence could mean the difference between living and dying. They found a group of pirates drinking in the mess hall, took 2 of them before they even knew he was there, and took the 3rd when he tried to run. They found guards sleeping in their bunks and stood watch while moved from bed to bed, quiet and efficient. They found an engineer trying to hide in the machinery of the engine room, and she talked him out of his hiding place with gentle words and then ended him before he could cry for help. It took hours. By the time they finished, the artificial dawn was beginning to light the ship, and arms ached from holding the weapon and her throat was raw from the smoke, and her heart was beating so hard she thought it might burst. They stood on the bridge, surrounded by silence, and looked at what they had done. 62 said, "All accounted for." Sat down heavily in the captain's chair. She had not realized how tired she was until she stopped moving. Every part of her body hurt, but beneath the pain there was something else. Pride, triumph, the fierce joy of having fought and won. "What now?" she asked. Moved to the navigation console. His fingers moved across the controls with surprising skill. "Now we set a course for your empire. The ship has enough fuel to reach the nearest outpost if we push the engines. 3 days, maybe 4. And then..." He looked up from the console. "And then you go home, princess." Something in his voice made her heart ache. "What about you?" "I will find another freighter, another job. There is always work for humans willing to travel." "No." Blinked no. Stood and crossed the bridge to stand in front of him. She was taller than he was, she realized. Taller and stronger and built for a world that was gentle compared to his. But somehow, standing here after everything they had done together, she felt like he was the larger one. "You are not leaving," she said. "You are coming with me." "Princess, your empire has no alliance with humanity. I would not be welcome." "Then I will make you welcome. I am the heir to 12 star systems. My word is law in half the galaxy. If I say you belong at my side, then you belong at my side. Your mother will never allow it. My mother will have to accept it." She took his hands in hers, those strange human hands that had killed so many tonight and had been so gentle with her in the darkness of the cell. "You saved my life, not just tonight but every night for 40 days. You kept me alive when I wanted to give up. You made me believe that escape was possible when I had accepted death. I owe you everything." "You owe me nothing. I did what any person would do." "No, you did what a human would do. And I am beginning to understand that humans are not like anyone else." Was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly he smiled. "You are not going to let me say no, are you? I am a princess. I always get what I want." "And what do you want?" She squeezed his hands. "I want you to stay with me, not as a servant or a bodyguard or any of the other things my mother will try to call you. I want you to stay as my friend, as the human who refused to let me die." Looked at her, and something in his eyes changed. The hardness that had carried him through the night softened, and she saw the person beneath the warrior. The person who had held her in the dark and told her stories about Earth and made her laugh when laughing seemed impossible. "Then I will stay," he said. "I will stay as long as you need me." "What if I need you forever?" "Then I will stay forever." They stood together on the bridge of the ship they had claimed, and the stars stretched out before them like an endless sea of possibility. Behind them was blood and death and the wreckage of their captivity. Ahead was home and family and a future that neither of them could predict. But they would face it together. The princess and her human. 3 days later, the stolen ship limped into space. The Imperial patrol ships surrounded them within minutes, their weapons charged and their crews ready to fire. Broadcast her identity codes and her royal authorization, and there was a long, tense moment when she thought they would shoot anyway. A princess missing for nearly 2 months, appearing in a syndicate vessel covered in blood and damage. It sounded like a trap. But then the codes were, and the patrol commander's voice came through the communicator, shaking with disbelief. "Your Highness, is that really you?" "It is, Commander. I am coming home." They were escorted to the nearest, where was met by medical teams and security forces, and eventually, once word reached the capital, by the Queen herself. Queen Seraphine arrived on the like a thunderstorm wrapped in silk. She swept through the corridors with her guards struggling to keep up, her 4 eyes blazing with a mixture of fury and relief that had rarely seen. When she reached the medical bay where her daughter was being treated, she stopped in the doorway and simply stared. "Mother," said. Her voice was rough, her body covered in bandages, but she managed a smile. "I am sorry I worried you." The Queen crossed the room in 3 steps and wrapped her daughter in her arms. It was not a gesture that queens usually made. It was not dignified or proper or anything that the court would approve of. But Seraphine was not just a queen right now. She was a mother who had thought her child was dead. 47 days, the Queen whispered. 47 days without word. They told me you were dead. Your sisters were already fighting over your inheritance. I had to have 2 of them arrested to stop them from announcing your death publicly. I am not dead, Mother. I am here. I can see that. The Queen pulled back, holding her daughter at arm's length. Her eyes swept over the bandages, the bruises, the new hardness in her daughter's expression. What happened to you, child? The reports are confused. They say you escaped from a syndicate prison ship, that you killed the entire crew, that you flew the ship here yourself. Not by myself. Turned her head toward the corner of the room, where sat quietly on a chair, his wounds being tended by a medical drone that kept chirping in confusion about his strange human physiology. Mother, I want you to meet someone. The Queen followed her daughter's gaze. Her expression shifted into something complex and unreadable. A human, she said. His name is Cole. He was a prisoner on the same ship. He saved my life, Mother, not once but dozens of times. Without him, I would be dead or worse. The Queen studied for a long moment. He met her gaze steadily, without fear or submission. He looked like a man who had seen enough death that the threat of more did not frighten him. You killed 62 syndicate operatives, the Queen said. It was not a question. Yes, Your Majesty. By yourself. The princess helped. Something that might have been a smile flickered across the Queen's face. My daughter helped you slaughter a ship full of pirates. She did more than help. By the end, she was as dangerous as any soldier I have ever served with. His voice was steady, matter of fact. Your daughter is remarkable, Your Majesty. The syndicate thought they could break her. They were wrong. She endured things that would have destroyed most beings, and she came out stronger. The Queen looked back at her daughter. Is this true? Nodded. He taught me, Mother. He taught me how to survive, how to fight, how to refuse to give up even when giving up seemed like the only option. She reached out and took her mother's hand. I want him to stay with me. I want him to come back to the palace and be part of my household. Absolutely not. Mother, a human in the royal household. The scandal would destabilize 3 sectors. The other noble families would never accept it. Your sisters would use it against you in the succession debates, and the diplomatic implications with the other empires. I do not care. The Queen stopped. In her entire reign, she had never heard her daughter speak with such force. "I do not care about scandal or politics or what the other nobles think," continued. "For 47 days I was alone with my fear and my pain and the certainty that I was going to die. And then came, and suddenly I was not alone anymore. He gave me hope when I had none left. He taught me that survival is a choice, not a gift. He risked his life again and again to keep me safe." Her voice broke slightly, but she pressed on. "I am not asking you to make him a noble or give him titles or treat him like royalty. I am asking you to let him stay, to let me keep the one person in the universe who saw me at my worst and helped me become better." The queen was silent for a long moment. Then she turned to, "Human Cole, why did you save my daughter?" Considered the question. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful. "On Earth we have a saying, 'You are responsible forever for what you have tamed.' I did not tame the princess, your majesty, but I made her a promise in that cell. I told her I would get her home. I told her that we would both refuse to die." He paused. "Humans do not break their promises. And now your promise is fulfilled. She is home. Now I have made a new promise." Looked at, and his expression softened. "I promise to protect her, always." "Why, what do you gain from this?" "Nothing, your majesty. I gain nothing except the knowledge that someone I care about is safe. For a human, that is enough." The queen studied him for a long moment, her ancient eyes seeing things that others could not see. She had ruled her empire for centuries, had navigated politics and wars and betrayals that would have destroyed lesser beings. She knew how to read people, how to see through lies and manipulations to the truth beneath. And what she saw in Cole was something rare, something genuine. "You truly would die for her," the queen said. It was not a question. "Yes." Without hesitation. Without hesitation. The queen turned back to her daughter. For a moment, she saw not the princess who had been raised in luxury and privilege, but the warrior who had fought her way out of hell with a human at her side. The child she had thought was lost forever had come back changed, hardened, and somehow more alive than she had ever been. "The court will never accept this," the queen said finally. "The noble families will protest. Your sisters will use it against you. There will be scandal and rumors and challenges to your position. I know. You are willing to face all of that for this human." "Yes." The queen sighed. It was a sound that carried the weight of centuries. "Then I will make arrangements," she said. "He will be given quarters in the palace, access to the royal areas, and a formal position as your personal guardian. The court will accept it or they will deal with me." She looked at one last time. "Do not make me regret this, human." Stood and bowed, a surprisingly graceful gesture for someone from a species known for its lack of formality. "I will protect her with my life, your majesty. That is a promise I will never break." The queen nodded curtly and swept out of the medical bay, her guards hurrying to follow. Let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. "That went better than I expected," she said. Raised an eyebrow. "Did it? Your mother looked like she wanted to have me executed." "That is just how she looks at everyone," smiled and reached out to take his hand. "Welcome to the family, Cole. I hope you are ready for palace politics." "I survived a syndicate prison ship. How hard can palace politics be?" She laughed, and the sound surprised both of them. It had been so long since she had laughed without pain or bitterness. But standing here in the space between one world and another, she felt something she had not felt in a long time. She felt safe. She felt hope. She felt like maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be all right. The throne room of the empire stretched endlessly beneath crystalline spires that hummed with ancient power. Queen Seraphine sat upon her obsidian throne, her daughter standing beside her, and before them knelt the most unusual figure the court had ever seen. A human. The courtiers whispered behind their fans and their protocols. In the palace, a primitive from a backwater planet, given access to the most sacred spaces of the empire. It was unprecedented. It was scandalous. It was exactly the kind of thing that would be talked about for generations. Knelt with his head bowed, waiting. He had cleaned himself up as best he could, wearing simple dark clothing that had provided. He looked out of place among the glittering nobles and their elaborate costumes, but he did not seem to care. He simply waited, patient and still, like a predator at rest. "Cole," the queen announced, her voice carrying through the chamber, "you have performed a service to the empire that cannot be easily repaid. You saved the life of our heir, protected her through unimaginable hardship, and brought her home when all hope seemed lost." The whispers intensified. The courtiers had heard rumors, of course, but this was official confirmation. "In recognition of this service, we grant you the position of royal guardian to Princess. You will have access to all royal areas, authority over the princess's personal security, and the protection of the crown in all matters." The queen paused. "Rise, guardian Cole." Stood, he did not look at the courtiers or their whispering. He looked at, who was standing beside her mother's throne with a smile on her face. "The empire thanks you," the queen continued. "And now, princess, I believe you wish to address the court." Stepped forward. She was wearing her formal robes now, her silver skin polished and her markings proudly displayed. She looked every inch the royal heir, but there was something different about her, something harder and more focused. The courtiers who had known her before her capture noticed the change and whispered even more. "Lords and ladies of the court," began, "I know many of you have questions about my time in captivity and my escape. I know there are rumors and speculation about what happened on that ship. Let me address them directly." She paused, letting the silence stretch. "I was tortured," she said. "Every day for 40 days, I was taken to a room and hurt by creatures who enjoyed causing pain. They wanted information about our empire, about our defenses, about our weaknesses. I gave them nothing." The court was absolutely silent now. No one whispered, no one moved. "I survived because I am a daughter of this empire, raised to endure what others cannot. But I also survived because I was not alone. Cole was with me in that cell. He tended my wounds when I was hurt. He kept me warm when I was cold. He gave me hope when I had none." Her voice strengthened. "And when the time came to fight, he taught me how." She looked at, standing alone in the center of the court, surrounded by beings who had never faced anything more dangerous than a political scandal. The humans call themselves a young species. They come from a small planet in an unremarkable star system. They have no great empire, no ancient history, no powerful allies. But they have something that many in this court have forgotten. She turned back to the assembled nobles. "They have courage. Not the kind of courage that comes from knowing you will win, but the kind that comes from fighting anyway when victory seems impossible. Cole killed 62 beings to save me. Not because he was stronger or better armed or had any advantage at all, but because he made a promise, and humans do not break their promises." The queen watched her daughter with an expression that was hard to read. Pride, perhaps, or concern, or both. "So let me be clear," continued. "Anyone who challenges Guardian Cole's presence in this palace challenges me. Anyone who insults him insults my judgment. And anyone who tries to harm him will discover exactly what I learned in that cell." She smiled, and it was not a gentle smile. "The syndicate thought they could break me. They failed. Do not make the same mistake." She returned to her place beside her mother's throne. The court remained silent for a long moment, processing what they had just witnessed. Then slowly, the whispers began again, but they had a different tone now. Less scandalized, more respectful. The princess had returned from captivity with a human at her side. And somehow, that human had made her more dangerous than she had ever been before. Later that night, found on the observation deck of the palace. The deck jutted out from the side of the mountain that the palace was built into, offering a view of the valley below and the sky above. The twin moons were rising, casting silver light across the landscape. It was beautiful in a way that was completely different from the cold stars of space. "How are you adjusting?" she asked, coming to stand beside him at the railing. Shrugged, "Everything is very clean and very formal. I have already been bowed to 17 times today by servants who looked like they expected me to explode if I was not shown proper respect." Laughed, "They are not sure what to make of you. With royal access is unprecedented." "I noticed." He looked at her. "Thank you for what you said in the court. You did not have to defend me like that." "Yes, I did. The court respects strength above all else. If I had shown any weakness about my feelings for you, they would have exploited it." She paused. "Besides, everything I said was true. Even the part about teaching you to be dangerous. Especially that part." She leaned against the railing, looking out at the moons. "I am not the same person who left on that diplomatic mission 2 months ago. The syndicate changed me. You changed me, and I am still figuring out who I am now." "Does that frighten you?" "Sometimes, but mostly it feels right. Like I was always meant to be this person, and I just needed something to push me into becoming her." They stood together in silence for a while, watching the moons rise. The night was warm, and the air smelled of flowers from the palace gardens below. "What happens now?" asked finally. "Now we figure out how to live in peace. My mother will want to use you, of course. Having a human guardian will be a political statement, a warning to her enemies. But I will not let her turn you into a weapon. And if your enemies come for you again, then we will deal with them together." She reached out and took his hand. "You are not alone anymore. Whatever comes, we face it as partners." He looked at their joined hands, so different in shape and color and texture. A princess and her human, an unlikely pair that somehow fit together perfectly. "Partners," he agreed. Above them, the stars stretched out in endless silence. But standing on that observation deck, watching the moons rise over an alien world, neither of them felt alone. They had found each other in the darkness, and now they would face the light together. Whatever came next, they would be ready.